Hello and welcome to a Wonket chat that is neither live nor on the weekend. I'm Robin Panakia, and this is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson.
Hello, Robin. We had kind of wanted to regroup to discuss this other issue that had been going on um, in the Senate regarding Dianne Feinstein and her health, which it's just been this huge thing. She is, in fact, 90. She has had health issues for a while. That's been reported on. Uh, and it just
Shingles.
Yes, and we can discuss the sort of specifics of why her absence as specifically is an issue because she's on the Judiciary Committee. But overall, it's led to this sort of, I think, Kirsten Gillibrand, who was like, she shouldn't be forced out. It's your decision when someone retires or not. And Sanders has said the same thing, and that's expected. Nancy Pelosi and the others had said this is all sexism because no one is saying that Chuck Grassley, who's the same age, should resign. Well, I don't care if he's incompetent because he's a Republican. Same
Yeah,
with Mitch McConnell. I don't.
they're
It's
all going to
reasonable.
be incompetent and regardless.
Well, it's reasonable that Democrats would be more concerned that they can't confirm judges because of an ailing Democratic senator than they would that Chuck Grassley is like tweeting nonsense or something. But to me, it just creates this larger issue of I was seeing like recent footage of Feinstein. I was seeing Mitch McConnell come back, and there's discussion that he is going to retire soon, but he was sort of coming back to the Senate after his fall. And with each of these people, you're like, I've literally seen for like a Walmart greeter or Waffle House employee, there's been like a GoFundMe for like this person should be able to retire. Why is this person in their 80s clearly failing health? Why do we as a country, why are we forcing them to still work? Um I am a big supporter of the fact that people should, I mean, it's obviously a choice, right? I support abortion rights. I'm not saying that abortion should be mandatory. So I don't believe in a mandatory retirement age, but there is this sort of thing of like for certain jobs, we are fine with people working until they literally die. And I don't know why is that good? That's not good in any sort of capacity for me in any way, right? Like,
Well, I think, I guess the way that they're looking at is these people are doing a job that they actually want to continue doing. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because I personally think that the retirement age should be much lower. Um, these people sort of want to hold on to power. It's not like, when people retire, they're like, "Yay, I'm excited! I'm going to go like live my best life on a houseboat or something."
mhm,
um, play golf, whatever people do when they retire. Um, it's more that they're like, I literally want to continue holding on to this job for whatever reason.
mhm,
It's not, they're not excited to retire.
sure.
And so I think, that's part of the issue. Like, should people be forced to retire? I don't generally think so until they clearly can't do their
No.
job. But if I'm not going to tell people what to do, usually.
Yes. It's sort of more about
I'm going to
modeling
tell people what
behavior.
to do. But um, I I'm I'm going to have to say, like, I was not pro Dianne Feinstein when she had it together. Like,
um
I did not,
Yeah,
you know,
and it's not about. And people will try to. I think that's what comes like. Oh, you want fine. You are pointing out that she is not almost 90 and frail, so that you can get your progressive dream of
yeah.
Katie Porter in. And there's just all these sort of conspiracies. Like, well, no, it's just that she's obvious. Like, we live in a democracy, and she's obviously not kind of. It's not like it's a small company of like Feinstein's department store or something in San Francisco. And she's sort of, look, the seat, like, don't force out the CEO. the staff is running everything. That's fine. Like, this is a democracy. We elect a person, not staff members or
Yeah.
aides. Um, and arguably, Queen Elizabeth was technically, even though they were scaling things down for her, but she was actually still more active than we've seen from Dianne Feinstein recently, and not there were no arguments of
She was having tea with Paddington Bear last. I think I paid attention to the Queen.
yeah, and no issues of health. I would say for the to take a perhaps conservative devil's advocate is that it's not so much the idea of retirement age or saying that we should allow people to retire or social security or whatever by 65 and we're not going to raise it to 70 because that's very much of debate now, right?
Mhm.
Which is an issue, and everyone's like, oh, to balance the budget we need to raise the retirement age to 70. The argument is like, well, it's not that people want to
By the
work,
way, our
it's
retirement age is 67, not 65.
yeah, we want to raise it because you should not raise this because people should not have to it is
Work
actually
until they
it
die.
is your health. There are issues beyond just whether you want to work or not work. It's like, no, no, no. This is a health issue. And a lot of that debate is then being held by people who say, no, I'm 85 years old and in the best health of my life and can run a nation. Whereas you whereas someone coming in and working retail conceivably should be able to do the same thing. Like, not, I think it's sort of I don't
Yeah.
know. I think you should sort of
No,
try
I
to
agree there.
model you
Yeah.
should try to model good behavior, which is
Well, because in America, we're also like just continue like working is the best. Everyone, um,
mm,
you're not of value to society if you're not working. Like it's very much our culture. Um, you know, our retirement age is 67. In France this week, there were like basically riots over the fact that they are talking about raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. So like
well, because they work very hard. And I've seen that like, not that Americans don't work hard, but they work very, very hard. And it's this idea of like this, and you go and you live your part of the idea is that you are still engaged. I think that you're right. It's this American idea that like if I'm not working, I have no I'm the worker drone. I'm a salmon that's gone upstream and now I'm dead, as opposed to I'm gonna engage with my community, either
yeah.
through a church or activity or something, or even the idea of like we enjoy what we do, we enjoy writing, but there's a difference between, oh, in 30 years or 40 years or so, us doing once a month chats about musical theater, as opposed to having to get up every morning
And
and write a certain amount of like, as much as we might enjoy doing, I don't necessarily want to be doing that when I'm Dianne Feinstein's age. That doesn't seem cool to me. Like, I think a friend of mine, when he retired, who was like, the best thing is just that, no more of that fucking alarm. Like, I
yeah,
get
no,
up
that
when I
I
want to get up.
don't enjoy. Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, and he's an active person. He volunteers, he
Mhm,
does things, but he's like, it's your time for whatever you have left to do. It's your time.
mhm.
And I think that is part of modeling. I feel like we don't model a lot of that good behavior. I mean, even that was when folks, again, in their 80s, so both Pelosi and Biden, and then slightly younger Manchin, but a lot of folks, when they would get COVID, they would say, "Oh, I've got COVID. Don't worry, I'm okay. I'm going to be working remotely."
Mhm.
And you know, I felt like that creates this sort of image, like, because
That you're
you
supposed
really
to
should
keep
be.
working when you're sick, and you're supposed to retire, like, never, ideally. No, it is. It sets a bad example, and it sets an idea, I think, in people's heads that, like, oh, technically everyone can keep working. Maybe no one should have, retire. Maybe we should get rid of Social Security. Um,
Yeah,
problem.
everyone's going to say this is an issue I have with. I say it's not anything. It's not anything about our politics. It is not anything about Grassley's politics or McConnell's. But to me, it's sort of like, what is going on when you reach a certain age and you're like, I want to I want to commit to another 6 years of this or 4 years of this instead of doing almost anything else. And I get it, what you're saying is about proximity to power or whatever, but it is, should we define ourselves by our jobs, by our work? Are there other things, other ways of doing things?
Hmm.
Um, and it's okay to admit we're mortal, right?
Yeah. Well, I wonder if, on the other hand, it's not mostly Dianne Feinstein just not wanting to retire because she doesn't want to be replaced by a progressive, and figures that she would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. And
She's
I'm
pretty.
gonna
She's
I'm gonna sound
pretty
terrible
conservative.
here. I don't know she's even capable of making that type of calculation. I don't think it's political. I think maybe she's very attached to this, or who knows? That's the problem. No one. She's not on. But again, that's the whole thing. Like people, well, it's sexism because you don't think McConnell or Bernie's 80. It's like, well, look, Sanders is on. He appears on he appears on television and seems
Hmm. With it.
aware of the world, and that is not so much that I don't have to agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with what Manchin's saying a lot of times, or what Grassley was saying, or McConnell's saying. But okay, well, they sound obviously, but we don't know. I mean, stories about this with Feinstein and whatever, and I think there is a larger elephant in the room here when with Democrats circling the wagons on perhaps an obviously infirm person being, having their staff run things. The elephant in the room is that if you are we're going to have Biden will be like 82 in 2024. And
Hmm.
look, it is reasonable to be like, if his health starts to decline, he's president and external, his health starts to decline, we will have honest conversations about that. We'll be transparent about that and allow his vice president, Kamala,
Hmm.
to take office. And people think that that's somehow, I just want to clarify for those who have not watched The West Wing, which that documentary. Uh, but I just want to clarify everyone who watched The West Wing, I think, has a different view of people who thought what the relationship between Biden and Kamala was going to be, because like in the West Wing, the vice president was always presented as useless and marginalized, and the people actually running the nation was like unelected people, like his chief of staff and that department. They, of course, have, and that is in fact somewhat true. I mean, it's like you have the vice president has as much power as the president gives, but there's certainly a great deal of um, incentive for, because I would have my own staff, you would have your own staff. So if you're the president, um, there's certainly an incentive to keep your health issues away from me, to not keep
Hmm.
me fully
Yeah.
informed to that, because that my once I'm coming in, like a whole department's going to lose their job. There
Yeah.
might be some people would stay, but your number two is not going to be essentially in the situation room with you anymore. It's going to be my number two. And so to that end, there is sort of a sense of, you want to kind of model the fact that we're going to be transparent about health. I mean, I think Fetterman was, well, not just
He's
because I,
been wonderfully transparent about himself in a way that I think is actually really awesome.
well, yes, no one is, and again, I'm not trying to be cruel to Feinstein, but when people will say, okay, well, there's been clearly some issues or challenges, we will see a photo of her doing some good stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
a reference to her doing some good stuff. But when you did not have all your teeth, like when Robin was like, and I'm not trying to like, and you're very young and whatever, I'm just saying, some like, this is why are you, it's like bringing up, okay, well, is Fetterman's going to be, what his health challenges, will he be able to do his job? And I'm bringing up when he was kicking ass during the 2020,
Mm-hmm.
election and making fun of Republicans without acknowledging that, well, he did have a stroke, and then he had, and he's and his and to like pretend that that never happened. He didn't. He's been like, I had a stroke. Here's the challenges. Here's
Yeah.
how I'm dealing with these challenges. And I think that can be a challenge with age. No one is like, no, 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 I'm still the person I was 10 years ago. And no one
To be
likes to feel
fair,
that that matters.
has she ever been that swift? I'm not so sure. Remember that time that she like basically helped Richard Ramirez go free? She was even a senator.
Yes.
She was
Well,
at it.
yeah.
You know what? I'm just gonna like get on TV and tell everyone all of the police's evidence against Richard Ramirez so that he can change his tune.
So are we good cop or how
Doing.
how are we are we good cop or bad cop, or just bad cop and worse cop here with Feinstein? I'm trying to be
I know.
nice.
Like, I'm sorry. I have never been a big fan to begin with. Obviously, I'm a lot more progressive than she is, but like, she, I guess, has an argument to some degree of, well, I've always been like this.
Yes, and that would be the argument of like fine or whatever. I mean, I'm to the sense of like I'm trying to look at it. It feels like I don't really care about our politics so much. Of there's been clear. I feel like there is a democratic issue whenever we elect, and we understand that when we elect a person, we're electing a staff, but that goes past the fact that we don't want the staff any aides. And there was some weird stuff on the Twitter where things were first person, but clearly not by her. And that to me is like, not, that should not be happening. That should just be,
Yeah.
if she's not well, she's not the queen, right? If she's not well, the staff needs to be front about that. And then we need to kind of, and now they're in a situation where they are, because of she can't be president of the Judiciary Committee, they need to replace her. And as soon as that occurred, when she was like, okay, well, we can replace me on the Judiciary Committee, it's like, well, Republicans are going to make this as hard as possible. So they said, because you need unanimous consent or 60 votes to make the
Mm-hmm.
switch. So they are saying cinema or no one. So it will still, either we can't get any judges or we get cinema in, who's probably going to flip on it. You can't trust her at all.
Yeah.
So that I find suspicious. So but I don't know. I mean, I was just very concerned when and part of it's with the Supreme Court in general, right? So when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, seems like Nina Totenberg had revealed, like towards the last few months, for like she was deathly ill, and you want it to be, no one should have to work or feel they have to work while they're sick to the end of
Yeah.
their life. I mean, and her situation was what it was because she kind of knew she was sort of, the human rights depended upon her.
Yeah. No, I agree. I get a lot of shit for this, but I do think she should have retired during Obama. Like, she had some great votes. Really wish she had retired during Obama. Like, that would have been great.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I think, well, some of that, of course, fell upon the institutionalism that Republicans have of like, because he was able to get Kagan and Sotomayor and then Kagan, and there was like, the Liebermans or whatever was like, or you can only have one new justice per year. We don't want you to seem like you're packing the court. So,
Yeah. Should have seemed like he was packing the court. Like,
well, God forbid that
yeah.
we're Democrats ever really sort
We
of.
might all have, reproductive rights now. And I'm sorry, but no, I think that she should have retired. Like, possibly during his first term, like we would have been okay.
Yeah, the concern was just, yes, that after 2012, after I guess 2014, that or even prior, right? Because the Republicans would have filibustered um any nominee. They were at a point after the Tea Party revolution where they were sort of like, we're not going to work
No.
with him at any point. So, and they didn't have 60 senators. So I get that. And I get whatever the thought process was. But it clearly wasn't an idea of we shouldn't make calculated decisions. Kennedy did make a calculated decision. So he's like,
Mhm.
I'm going to go enjoy my life. And I mean, people were trying to make it out to be some sort of, was he bought? Was it sold? Why did he retire? It's like, well, no, he's like, what? He was probably in his 80s. It's like,
Yeah.
I want to stop working, and a Republican's president now. So, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah. No, and like quite frankly, it was smart of him to do that if he cared about like the terrible things that he cared about, you know? Like that's what you got to be a little bit calculating sometimes. It can't all be like, rainbows, lollipops and gumdrops and what have you. Um it you just can't. Um I feel like, you know, having Feinstein in office is not helping us right now. And I'm not, it's not. She is not a help. Like she is, and if she's going to be in office for another 6 years, we're losing. We're also like,
Well, she's not running again. She's because he said that she's not going to run after
I don't know.
2024.
She's. Mm, I actually wouldn't put it past her, quite frankly. Like I'm a little bit worried about that. I think, yeah, because she still hasn't said she's officially retiring, or like is not retiring. That she won't run. That's still up in the air, and that's why people were mad at Katie Porter and oh my god, who else that they hate that declared their intent to run. I can't.
It was Barbara Lee and Adam
Yeah.
Schiff, but I think people like
Oh,
Adam Schiff. I thought,
oh, okay, yeah. No, okay, maybe it was just Katie Porter that they were mad at. Like it's not.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
you should have primaries, especially in
Oh, sorry.
and
What people were saying was that it was bad of Katie Porter to announce that she was running before Feinstein said that she was going to retire. Which,
yeah,
like,
but I mean, there should still be like there should be elections, right? It's not a
yeah,
Supreme Court seat. There should be elections. So, and I'm giving California's system, like, who else would be if like it that doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I mean,
it's kind of important for us to have a somewhat deep bench. Like, that was one of the problems that I think we, definitely faced in the last primary was that we did not have a lot of younger senators to choose from. We didn't have a lot of younger governors. We had like mostly people over 70. And hey, I liked a lot of those people. I love both Bernie and Warren. Like I like both of them. Um, but we didn't have a lot of people who were, younger, like definitely capable of serving 2 terms with no problems. And we do need a deeper bench. And so, like, I hate to say it, but in that, it's strategically not great
mhm.
for
Yeah,
that as well.
I just don't, and I never got. I mean, the stuff that I would hear, which is just that, well, Pete Buttigieg is 40, but I had a friend who died of cancer at 42, or he could be in a car crash, and it's like, okay, that's all true, but like in a general sense, what we would like a 40-year-old, we could reasonably expect to serve
Yeah.
and
So I'm
someone
not
being
clapping him as a
86
candidate.
or 87.
That was a terrible joke. I'm sorry. Um,
I mean, people, uh, uh, and no one wants to hear this, but health can deteriorations can occur very quickly in your
yeah.
80s. Um, So but that's the dialogue. No one wants to have this sort of
And I
dialogue.
think no one wants to do ageism, and that's fair. But I think there are other ways to think about it strategically that aren't necessarily people over a certain age are stupid.
No, I mean, I think it's just a
Like,
question of like
or stupid, deteriorating. Like,
it's
I think there's
it's
a
a very
way.
demanding job. It's not even
Yeah,
about being stupid. It's just a being very it's a very demanding
I know. Yeah, sorry,
job.
I
Like,
think split. But yeah, no, it really is. And we need the best people in all of those positions. Like it's kind of important. They're not just figureheads. Like they're not the Queen of England.
oh yeah, and
Probably Weekend at Bernie's being the Queen of England, I think.
well, yeah, and to go from I think what happens to Feinstein is that what happened with that is that we've gone from hey, Biden seems spry. Jay Inslee, I was surprised that he was in his 70s. He seems spry. Like people who are you know and because that's what prejudice is, right? Or ageism is. It's just like I haven't seen the applicants. I don't want to
Yeah,
hire a black person or a woman or someone over 65 because of what I believe black people, women, and people over 65 are like, as opposed to, okay, well, Feinstein's has, there's been reported issues related to her health and her age and her
yeah,
frailty. That is like that is not suddenly being unfair and saying you want to force all women out. And I
after
think that's also seems, and that, I don't know. I am not a woman. I can't say this, but I just feel like that seems when powerful women, and this is what I'll see in a sense, talk about that's sexism when, well, as you say, like there's so many seats, right? Or so many options. And it's like, oh, you're trying to force me out for sexism. Well, how are younger women going to, or the next generation going to rise up if you're holding on to power for decades? I don't think that's necessarily
Mhm.
sexism. It's
Yeah.
more of like,
And again, that goes back to like the bench issue. Like we need like more women with that kind of experience. We need more women to be like in those positions of power so that they can then run for president. Like really, like we do. We need that to happen.
oh yeah, I mean, because Democrats are very big on experience, right? So it's one thing to
Yeah.
be like, for Republicans, it's like, okay, well, most of our safe seats are going to be held by, or a lot of our Senate seats and our governors are held by older people, but we're still someone where we might even run a Trump who's never held office, or a Marjorie Taylor Greene, or God forbid, or something like that. But
Mhm.
Democrats are very much on you've got to play the duels and
Yeah.
dues and
Pay
have
your
the
dues and
experience. And
yeah.
it's like, well, then where are they going to come from?
Yeah.
Because those positions are all held
Because well,
by.
this is the thing, they're very big on it's about who mostly about whose turn it is
Mhm.
more than anything else. Like whose turn is it? Is it, who put in the right amount of things so that it's now their turn. And so that way we don't have to have like that many, that big of a discussion because we all acknowledge it's this person's turn. Well, it needs to be like I said, if that's what you want, then you need more people to have that experience so that, there is, I guess, an heir. Like they like having heir apparents, make some heir apparents.
Yes. And I kind of think in a democracy, people dying in office unless it's an accident or something
Yeah.
is, I don't know, a little too monarchy for me. It just
Yeah.
seems like, because you can't,
Yeah.
and then how dare you run against this person if they're in office? So it's almost a sense of, with that, of like, it's so how dare you primary this person, or how dare
Mhm.
you run against this person and then make cases about her record, her performance. So then
Yeah.
it's just, okay, well then what is it? She shouldn't retire because of her age, but God forbid anyone run against her and be like, why are you hugging Lindsey Graham? Which is something that,
Yeah.
if a 60-year-old senator had done from Michigan, someone would have probably run against that senator and been like, what the hell are you doing? Or why'd you do X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z? I mean, you should be expected to sort of have
Or
to
if they had said,
negotiate.
maybe Donald Trump will be a really great president. He just needs to grow into it, maybe. Um, I I mean, if she had not been as far to the right as she is, she would have been in so much trouble for that. And I think about that a lot. Like, oh my God. Like, it had
Well,
been like,
yeah, I agree. I sort of I know I agree with you, but I would differ only in the sense that I think Feinstein's problem is not so much just concern, and I think you're right. There are some right wing aspects to her record, but it's more the institutionalism. She's been very much part of the institutionalism. So the
yeah,
idea that it's a club, and it's a club, and
yeah,
so the president, whoever the president is, okay, we're going to rally behind this person. They're going to do a
mhm,
great job and let's support. That's a nice thing to say, even though it should be no, no, no. We've just elected a fascist, and this is a five-alarm fire. Um, I mean, a lot of that was with the she would sort of be at cross purposes. She would sort of argue that we shouldn't confirm, say, Alito, for instance, or some others because of their this guy clearly is going to overturn Roe v. Wade, or this guy doesn't support abortion rights, while also saying that the Supreme Court isn't political. The Supreme Court is about, you know, interpreting the law and qualifications. But if you allow it to be on that institutional level, as I've argued, well, Gorsuch and Alito are qualified. They've clicked all the they passed all the exams. They did all of that. So you need to be like, no, no, no. This person is ideologically
yeah,
corrupt, but there was always a problem with framing it that way. So a
yeah,
lot of the folks who brought into the idea of the courts being this sort of objective arbiter. And when that happens, well, they started laughing when sort of they're like, okay, yeah, we can just we're going to overturn, we're going to FDA approval for this judge for this drug on BS reasons, and what can you do about it? Because we just make up stuff. We're the
mhm,
we're the courts, so it's not like a spell, right? Like he did the spell wrong. It's like no, he can just say whatever he wants and overturn it. So um, but yes, I think finally I just strongly support people modeling the behavior to um regardless of policy, politics, don't run for office
yeah,
forever. And that's sort of maybe that's a Republican thing in me. I mean, Republicans say it, but never did it. The idea that you run for office, you do it a couple terms,
mhm.
then go back to your farm or small town store do and go back to normal life, because what we need in the Senate or in the Congress are normal people who understand normal
I'm
concerns before
actually
they
not.
become.
I am not opposed to term limits.
Mhm.
Frankly, I actually would prefer term limits. I really would. Um, I don't like, and that's for like reasons of I don't want them having relationships with lobbyists. I don't want them, you know, like I think it is actually much like far preferable to have term limits in general because that also means that like you get more people who are experienced and more people who get experience and more people who have less experience. And I don't think I think that the idea of we want people to have these jobs forever, I don't think it is good. I think it does lead to corruption. I do think I think it is bad.
Well, especially with our gerrymandered map, so it just winds
Mhm.
up that you just have people in office forever, because the only
Yeah,
election in some of these gerrymandered districts are amongst people of the same party, because it's like
yeah,
a plus 10 plus 15 district in the general. And within the party, I mean, Republicans might challenge each other sometimes, but on the party, there's that sense of Democrats are like, how dare you, young upstart, challenge this
yeah.
person who's been doing this great job, has seniority, which of course we do reward people with stuff. Of course, the problem with seniority and being a ranking member and having this power is that, like Feinstein, it becomes more of a problem when you can't
Give it
turn
up.
up to work,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so um, they have these very prominent committee uh, appointments. So, yeah, I mean, I would hope it would be voluntary, that people would try to naturally retire. That is my preference. You're probably more realistic. The idea it should be mandatory because people never give up power. My
No,
friend Maya says it should be
power. Like,
there should be no term limits, but we should get rid of Citizens United. But I don't know what is going to be
oh, I
easier.
would love to get rid of Citizens United. That would be wonderful. But you know, the fact is, Citizens United does exist, and we're probably not getting rid of it anytime soon. Which is one reason why term limits would, in fact, be good. Um, I also, I think that we get also this idea that, oh, well, if, the Democrat leaves, they'll be replaced with a Republican, and so there's that fear. But if everyone has term limits, there's sort of more of an equal chance of that happening either way.
Yes, they just say that what happens is you don't wind up with the experience and stuff in the Senate. I mean, I think I don't know. Again, it sounds like a conservative thing to say. I just think that a lot of the benefit of normal people running, like
Yeah,
people who lived normal lives, going to
exactly.
Senate rather than people like the last time. Because what it does become like a form of role, you wind up with someone being like, okay, in my staff, you've been to a grocery store recently. And
Yeah.
I've discussed this with and then Republicans were having more of that diversity, so that when we were in an issue with inflation, it was a lot of Democrats
Mhm.
who were removed from that, being like, "Oh, this is an issue. This will blow over." And a lot of that could be true. They're saying like this is a global issue or whatever, but it was at least
Well,
Stefanik, who's
I mean,
evil, but she's someone who's in a grocery store, right? So she
mhm,
still is normal enough that she does her own grocery shopping. So just like, oh wow, these household items cost more. I bet we can nail Re-
mhm.
Democrats on this
Yeah,
because she's
and this is
still
the thing,
living
that
a normal
is
human
also
life.
an issue that we should have gone harder in terms of it being about corporate greed, and certain people have. Elizabeth Warren certainly has. Other people are a little bit more afraid, I think, because they're in situations where they have to rely on certain corporations for things. And I think it's a bad. I think we do not necessarily the idealism of people who have just started being in office, but like a little bit of less fear, like less, oh no, well, if I stand up for this, then I'm going to ruin my relationship with this lobbying group, or I'm going to ruin my relationship with this, you know, corporation that supports me otherwise. And I think, not having those attachments is generally preferable.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Well, it's I think that appeals to people. I mean, people don't like that. I think it appeals to people when it's this situation of like, if you're a first, it's like, oh, I acutely remember having issues with my health insurance, or every issue
exactly.
you have as a normal person right now, you are then advocating
You're
for as a
so
representative.
detached from it. It's, those kind of problems can sometimes seem silly to you. Or like, oh no, that doesn't really matter. You're fine. You're fine. Let's focus on this other thing. And there's not the same sense of urgency, I think.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
I totally get that, and as I said, I going back to this, I think health transparency is good. I think people should not be working till they die,
Hmm.
regardless. And I think it's somewhat it's somewhat I don't know. I think it's somewhat abusive. I think it's to the extent that anyone would encourage it or whatever. I mean, I think if someone is not well, to not force them to work. Um, I believe that for everyone at every level, and I think just in a general sense, we do have that problem, as you said, as Americans, of where our value. I've been guilty of it, and we all are guilty of like, what am I if I'm not doing this? If
Yeah.
I am not producing, what good am I? As opposed to, no, maybe I'll just, for the cliches, play with your grandkids, but you don't have to have grandkids. You can just
Yeah.
go see a
Do some
movie in the
cool
middle of
stuff.
the day, go just connect with the world. You don't need to live like a rich person, as they say, because that's what actually rich people
Yeah.
who don't have to work for a living,
Yeah.
that's how they do. Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
So, well, thank you, Robin. We'll
I'm
be
gonna be a
continuing
lady
monitoring
who
this.
lunches is gonna be what
Ladies who
I'm gonna
lunch,
be
yes.
I'm gonna be Joanne. All right.
All right.
Yes. Right.
I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.